Introduction. Growing up in Waterville Valley, New Hampshire was like slaving yard work on a toasty Saturday morning. Nobody wants to go outside and pull the fucking weeds, but you do it anyways. We had no choice but to stay there. Our ancestors had inhabited the town in 1829, and we weren't going to leave it. Even if we wanted to rid ourselves of that shitty town, we couldn't, due to a lack of money and education. Waterville was all that we knew. We'd never been in the real world, and we weren't about to go explore it that late in our lives. By no means were we crippled old souls, but the median age was 45 years old, and that's not exactly young. Many were farmers and had been all of their lives. The education system was no better than it was in butt-fucking Egypt, so those who knew how to read and write were a rarity. Those prosperous minds often left the town and never looked back. They were lucky that they left when they did, because what happened back in the summer of 1934 scarred me and my peers forever. Chapter 2. Gossipville. Everyone and their mother knows that living in a tight-knit community isn't always as peachy as they make it out to be. People make assumptions and convictions based on every little thing that you do. Rumors spread like wildfire and backs are often stabbed. Did you hear Betty Wine said his prego? Yeah, I heard Timmy gave her the pounding of her life and forgot to wrap it up. These classic lines were held true by our little town. With adults, things were even worse. Word would get around that so-and-so were having an affair and that so-and-so has a tiny pecker. Ah, small towns in all of their glory. Chapter 3. The Bankston Family. I was one of the bright kids that never left. As stupid as it sounds, I rejected offers from colleges out of state in order to continue the family business, plowing the fields on the Bankston estate. A state was a definite stretch when it came to our home. Broken glass laying on the ground from Grandpa Bankston's last drunk tirade, weeds up to your knees, and the putrid smell of the shitter located a few feet away from the east side of the house. I made some bad decisions and suffered the consequences. Money was tight, so the only option was to live with my grandparents. If my parents hadn't died in a wreck the fall of 1921, then life would have turned out a lot better for my family. I exchanged ring with Sharon Berwick 7 years prior, who gave birth to our 3 beautiful children, Michael, Karen, and Julie. Michael was the oldest of the 3. At school, he didn't have many friends. The schoolyard bullies would always take the time out of their day to torture him. Years later, he'd tell me that they once locked him in a cage and pissed on him. They only did this because he was a defenseless second grader. He never told the teachers or my wife and I what they did to him because of the pain that would follow. For one, they'd beat him to a bloody pulp, and secondly, one of the bullies, Matthew Donahue, was the son of the principal. They never believed him. His home life wasn't that much better. Living on the farm and tending to the livestock was about exciting as the life got. The typical 6-year-old was often outside playing with his G.I. Joes or trying to dig a hole to China. Michael didn't even know where China was, and he sure as hell never owned a G.I. Joe. He didn't know any better. I wish I would have been there for him more like the true American dad. I'll regret that until the day I die. Apparently, I didn't know my daughters very well either. My wife told me 20 years after what is about to occur that my grandfather would beat them. He wouldn't just spank them, he would literally drive his fists into their kidneys. The bruises were on their tummies, so they were always covered. Had I known what he was doing to them, I probably would have tied him up, broken his limbs, and cut his dick off with a box cutter. There are 2 types of drunks in this world. There are the drunks that everybody can laugh and dick around with, and the drunks that dare to be fucked with. Walter Bankston dared to be fucked with. He was a retired policeman and saw a lot in his day. This is most likely why he became a raging alcoholic. I remember a story that he once told me about a man named Ronald McGarvery. He was a tall man who was built like a brick shit house and was well liked by most. One day he decided to walk up to the store and buy some milk. When he got to 35th Avenue, he had to walk over the train tracks. As he was crossing, the tracks moved and locked in place, leaving his right foot trapped. He yelled and screamed, but no one was around. About 5 minutes later, he saw the bright lights coming towards him. I can imagine it was like God the Father Almighty coming down from heaven. He screamed and yelled, but no one came. The train couldn't stop due to its position, and it eventually tore Ronnie into a million pieces. Grandpa said that he saw the man's head 10 feet away from the tracks, and that image had always haunted him. Now, while I'm not glad that McGarvery died, I am glad that it haunted old Walt. That's all that mattered. He was drinking heavily during this time and probably didn't even remember beating up the girls. That doesn't mean that I'm giving him any sympathy, though. He was a real dick, even when he wasn't plastered. Sharon and my grandma Wanda never stepped in to try to stop things. If they were ever to intervene during any of the drunk fits, Walter would be on the verge of crippling them. Did they enjoy seeing their children and grandchildren be beaten? Of course not, but it was out of their power to stop that madman. As stated before, I knew nothing of the beatings. Walter left the bruises on the tummies of the girls, so when I came in from plowing the fields at about 9 or so to tuck them in, they were invisible. Smart thinking for someone with a pocket-sized brain. As you can tell, we weren't the typical American family. The Depression was hitting us hard, so it was a major struggle to get by. We probably had one of the best jobs during the Depression, though. We were farmers, and that meant if shit hit the fan, we could always feed ourselves. I truly do regret all of my mishaps during that time. Not getting to know my children was hard on me, and it depresses me at times. But back in the 30s, we had to work in order to get back on track. There was no other option. Chapter 4. The Celebrities of Waterville. In a town of 83 people, it's fairly easy to become a celebrity. There were a few essential qualities that you needed to possess, though. Leadership was at the top of the list. Those that can motivate and lift others up in the town were sure to be popular. Money was definitely the runner-up. Those who had money could attain power in society as fast as Jesse Owens could run the 100-meter dash. And last but not least, being a corrupt politician. If you had the ability to take your fellow to make your fellow citizens believe that you were as transparent, that you were a transparent, hardworking, loyal husband who would do whatever it takes to do what is best for the town, let's just say you were the George Washington of your day. Sheriff Ron Mayhem was one of the most respected citizens of Waterville. For 25 years, he'd been the head of the police force. Well, what there was of the police force. When people needed someone to talk to or just wanted to shoot the shit, they'd go to Ron. He was a great listener and could relate to everyone in the town. Criminals loved him because he was a fan of second chances. He usually just gave out warnings, mainly because he was a guy, but also because he was too lazy to fill out the paperwork. Ron prided himself on being the family man. Every few months, him and his wife, along with their 4 children, Benny, Donnie, Elizabeth, and Sarah, would travel to extravagant places. 2 months before the incident, they made their way to the beautiful Hawaii. What a wonderful place, huh? The gentle breeze hitting your face is about as satisfying as God greeting you at the gates of heaven. The lively palm trees bring you to a state of eternal happiness. Don't even get me started on the food. Lala is out of this world. But let's forget about that and move on to something more important. Ron was one of those guys who could appear to not be a greedy douche. The town thought that Ron was as transparent as the Holy Ghost, but he wasn't. How do you think he funded all of those fancy trips? Every time he was planning a trip somewhere, he stole a few $100s of taxpayer money and then paid it back a couple months later. But he was a good guy. The mayor of the town was a more presentable person. Maybe. Mayor Harper was the perfect guy in the eyes of most New Hampshireites surrounding Waterville. He stood by the quote, "By the people, for the people." He prided his campaign on making the decisions that people wanted, not him. You might be thinking, what's so bad about that? He sounds like a pretty bitchin' mayor to me. True. His politics aren't what I'm going after, though. His personal life is in question. He'd been married to Dorothy Peterson for 41 years, and although she thought of him as a faithful, loving husband, in all actuality, he wasn't. Dorothy had type 2 diabetes, and this caused her to run out of town to Malton Borough every week for a refill. When she was gone, her faithful husband invited her over the town sluts. Beth, gives a ton of head, Lily, suck your willy, and Sarah Longthong. A little whipped cream here, a little chocolate there, let's not forget the cherry on top. They'd always leave about an hour before Dorothy arrived home, so the old horn dog could clean up the mess. Quite the role model, eh? The rest of the town's inhabitants were formed by teachers, morticians, carpenters, and the like. The celebrities were a bit corrupt, but the town itself was full of genuine people. I'll get on to the little guys in due time. Waterville seemed like a wonderful place to be, but it wasn't. We all learned that fairly quickly. Chapter 5. I remember that day like it was yesterday. It was nearing noon and I felt a roar in my belly, so I headed in the house for a relaxing lunch. "What's on the menu?" I said to Sharon. "Ham on wheat with some veggies and lemonade." Growing up as a child, my mother used to always make homemade lemonade. I would help her squeeze the lemons and retrieve the seeds from the bowl. On occasion, I'd even set up a stand outside and sell some glasses for 25 cents. Ah, nothing compares to a tall glass of lemonades. Well, besides a big platter of juicy lemons, if you know what I mean. Biting into the perfectly prepared ham sandwich, feeling the mustard mayo hit the tip of my tongue, the bread stick to the back of my teeth. I thought about how perfect of a moment that was. I looked forward to it every day and never wanted the feeling to disappear, but it eventually did. At about this time, every day, I reminded myself of all the wonderful things and people that I had in my life. I was the type of guy that saw light in the small stuff. I didn't believe that money and glamorous looks achieved eternal happiness, only earthly happiness. Whenever I would hear Sharon talk about how she wished to be so-and-so, I always said the same thing. Money can't buy happiness, which is true. You can walk into any elegant store in the world and search for happiness, but it will never be on the shelves. Happiness comes from within. It's easy to act happy, but deep down, you're not happy at all. The happiest people in the world don't have fancy watches or $1,000 fur coats, but what they do have is contentment with their surroundings. I based my whole life around being content. I knew that someone in some far-off place had it a million times worse than I did. This kept me in line and helped me get through the rest of the day. I walked out into the living room and read the paper. I turned the pages until I saw the article that said Mayor Harper was working on a bill that would decrease government spending in Waterville. Looking back up at Sharon, I said, I sure as hell hope they get this bill done. It will help us out a lot. The state's debt is growing, and pretty soon no one will want to buy our crops because they have no money. That ain't entirely true, hon, Sharon said. Well, how do you figure? Everyone will always need to buy crops. How do you expect them to live? If worst comes to worst, then we'll just lower the prices a bit to bring in some more customers. Don't you worry, babe. Things will be a-okay. I agreed and continued flipping through the pages. The next big story was the grand opening of a business called The Psychic Shop. Apparently, you could go inside and pay $10 to find out your future. There had been a lot of controversy in the town over this because many of the citizens thought that witchcraft was evil and it went against their religion. Many had been picketing and saying things like, "Get this bitch out of our town. All she will do is bring evil into Waterville." I also had an opinion on this. I was brought up as a Lutheran, but witchcraft didn't bother me because I knew that it wasn't real. It was only a scam so the old hag behind the desk could pay the bills. Boy, was I wrong. But anyways, I knew that the lady had the constitutional right to open up her business wherever she wanted to, and just because some idiots wanted her out didn't mean that she had to leave. Looking back on this, I feel overly stupid and a bit embarrassed at my bad judgment. Shit happens. Move on. Hey babe, do you think the lady is evil? I said. What lady? The lady opening up the psychic shop, Miss Layla Rakita. Oh, of course not. She's just trying to make a living. She can't really tell what's going to happen in the future. She just guesses and gets her $10. Good, that's exactly how I'm feeling. I think she has all the power in the world to open it up. Boy, do I wish I would have never said that. Chapter 6. Leela Rakita. I did some research on Miss Leela Rakita. She was originally from Kolkata, India, and traveled to the United States with her husband in 1913. She lived with him in New York until his death in 1933. Prior to moving into Waterville, she was a psychic in New York. It was received pretty well there because of all the hooligans that occupy that state. I couldn't figure out why she decided to move to Waterville. My guess is that she wanted to live in a small town away from all the crazy folks. I couldn't say I wouldn't have done the same myself. Being a psychic is like having a huge target on your back. Most people hate you because of preconceived thoughts. That's all that I could find out about her.